Hi, everyone. My name is Jill, and I'm going to tell you a totally absurd and shocking story about astrology and its real impact on people's lives. How do you feel about horoscopes? I guess many of you don't believe in star magic, and those who do take horoscopes as recommendations rather than mandatory guidelines for action. I used to love reading them for fun as well. However, there are people who can't take a single step without a sign from above. My younger sister Kendra is one of those. She can cancel all her plans, refuse to eat, and demands to buy her red slippers straight away if the horoscope says so. To sum up, she is a real pain in the neck, and everything is my fault because it's I who once showed her a horoscope to make her wash dishes instead of me. Who could have known that it would convince and absorb Kendra so much? At first, my sister's innocent interest in horoscopes seemed sweet to me. It was fun to watch her flipping through all those books and magazines, drawing some charts and making calculations. Above all, she was very serious at those moments. Once our family was invited to my cousin's wedding, this is not like going to the grocery store, so we started planning our event outfits. Besides, it was necessary to follow a certain dress code. The bridal couple wanted all the women to wear below-the-knee dresses of blue color, while men should be wearing blue shirts and yellow bow ties. Anyway, we made it so we had our breathtaking outfits a week before the event. However, on the morning of the wedding, my sister told us that she couldn't wear a blue dress. She couldn't wear a dress or skirt at all that day, while a red sports suit would bring good luck to her. Can you imagine how embarrassing that would have been to our whole family? The only solution was to leave Kendra at home to keep her from embarrassing us in front of all of our relatives and acquaintances. So that's what we did. However, when we were in the middle of the celebration, my sister showed up wearing a red sports suit and black sneakers. It was a disaster. No, we didn't go home or send Kendra back home. It would have looked even more embarrassing than her outfit. So the holiday went on for everyone. Anyway, all the guests kept looking at us with disgrace, and some of them were about to faint when looking at Kendra. At home, she had a serious conversation with our parents. They asked how she came up with that and whether she realized that she embarrassed not only herself, but the whole family. In response, Kendra acted out a real drama with eye-rolling and theatrical sighs, showing that everyone around was stupid, while she and her horoscopes were the real power. Of course, that was not the only time when Kendra showed us her astrological foibles at their best. There were loads of such cases, and it could take weeks talking about all of them, but I'll probably share with you a couple of the most epic episodes from living with my stargazing sister. Once, Kendra shocked us all with the news that she decided to go in for rhythmic gymnastics. Just so you understand, she is absolutely awkward and clumsy. Even in pre-class, Kendra manages to get a muscle strain when trying to tilt to the side. Basically, flexibility and plasticity have nothing to do with my sister. Then I asked her why rhythmic gymnastics too, and to which Kendra replied that her personal horoscope said so. If she concentrated on this kind of sport, then in a few years she would succeed in it and even win at the Olympics. Well, we didn't mind, especially if the stars said so. Kendra went to a trial in rhythmic gymnastics. On the very first day, Coach asked her if she was sure that she chose the right sport. But seeing my sister's confidence, he didn't mind. However, after a month of suffering, Kendra injured her right knee in the middle of training, and on the same day, she underwent an emergency operation. Oops! I guess the stars made fun of her for rhythmic gymnastics. Do you think that she learned from that and started filtering the star advice? No, and no. After a couple of weeks, she refused to prepare for an important English exam, claiming that she would pass it perfectly anyway because the stars said so. And so the exam day came. Kendra painted her lips with black lipstick. You know why? I put on a black dress, slowly drank her coffee, and went lightly for the exam, mocking our seriousness before leaving. A few hours later, Kendra came home with snot all down her face from crying. She said that she couldn't answer a single question and made a fool of herself in front of the other exam participants and examiners. They asked if she even knew English at all, and how she managed to get to this difficult exam having the knowledge level of a first grader. Of course, my parents and I comforted her and calmed her down. However, a logical question asked itself: would she find some space for common sense in her life after that and stop blindly following the horoscopes? Kendra said that she was the one to blame for what had happened because she misinterpreted her forecast. What can I say? He who is born a fool is never cured. To be honest, Kendra's fatalism didn't really bother me when it didn't affect me, but when it did affect me, it really pissed me off. Jill, could you sit on the other side of the table? My horoscope says that today I should stay away from siblings. What the hell? Such outbursts had always been a blow to my ego. She said that stuff not only to me, but also to our parents. We felt like very tiny people compared to the goddess Kendra, who can reject you at any time or ban you for half the day. Soon the school principal came to our home. Our mom had a warm relationship with her, so she decided to talk to us in an informal setting. Honestly, I was afraid that they would talk about me, but unfortunately, or fortunately, it was about Kendra. The principal said that my sister was terrorizing the whole school with her astrological predictions. Everyone, including the teachers, were afraid of her and hated her. And a very sensitive math teacher ended up in a hospital with a heart attack because of her. It turned out that my sister made a horoscope according to which there should have been a fire at the math teacher's home that next week. The forecast was not very pleasant, even for skeptics, and deadly for a sensitive person. Basically, Kendra literally drove a poor woman crazy. She could neither eat nor sleep. She constantly checked all the electrical appliances in her apartment. 3 days later, an ambulance took her to the hospital. After this incident, the principal found out that it was not only the trick of Kendra, and that she had been taking money for individual horoscopes for her classmates, while illegal business was strictly prohibited within school walls. Parents were complaining that their children's grades were failing, that their behavior was getting strange, that they had changed a lot lately, and the reason was obvious to us. Kendra's astrology made her and her classmates zombies. We couldn't just leave things like that. It was necessary to act immediately. Otherwise, one of her classmates' parents would file a complaint to the police. That would close the door to the academy for her and become a stain on her future life. That evening, my parents shouted at my sister very much and forbade her to study astrology and make up horoscopes either for herself or for anyone else. Kendra sighed and said that she was expecting that scandal because the stars had warned her in advance. After that, Dad was so mad. He collected all of our astrology books and burned them with anger in the fireplace. It was practically the end of the world for Kendra. She screamed, cried, and even hit the floor in hysterics. She was ignoring us completely and showing us her protests for about a week. My parents did not know what to do with her. The saddest thing is that she didn't learn from that at all, even when the going got tough. However, after a while, our parents and Kendra reached a compromise. She was allowed to study astrology, but only if it would not affect her life and the lives of other people around her. No one should even guess that she was a stargazer, and we, her family, would forget about it. It worked. And since Kendra has changed a lot, or maybe she was influenced by the incident with the math teacher who my sister almost killed. Anyway, her fun should not hurt any living creature, by the way. The poor math teacher even had to leave her job after the incident because high school students and some teachers started laughing at her. They were surprised and outraged. How could an adult woman with a mathematical mindset blindly believe a schoolgirl? How could one be so naive? In fairness, I want to say that the fire in her house did happen, but not a week after Kendra's forecast. It happened in a month. Is it a coincidence? I tend to believe yes rather than no. Professor McGuire said that if I aced this test, I would be at the top of the class for this semester. Before cramming food into his lips, my older brother Derek murmured something. With a critical eye, I looked over at my brother. He walked away. Whenever he was lying, I experienced a tiny twitch. I was curious as to what he was concealing from Mom and Dad. Someone unexpectedly knocked on the door. Keisha, are you expecting someone? Mom looked at me over her glasses. You know, I don't like it when companies disturb dinner. I rolled my eyes. I don't think anyone is coming, Mom. I'm sorry, Mom, but it's just me. Derek stood up after wiping his mouth. Professor McGuire needed certain documents, so Craig had dropped them off for me. Derek went to answer the door, and when Mom nodded, a few minutes later, Derek returned. So, what type of papers does Craig need to drop off at this hour? I smirked in Derek's direction. Nothing that concerns a high school student, Derek replied irritably. We'll see about that, I whispered as I swallowed. My last drop of juice is begging for dessert. Dad Dad added his 2 cents. I baked my well-known apple pie. Derek and I both screamed at the same time. As Dad and Derek headed to the kitchen to prepare dessert, we exchanged glances before doubling over in laughter. I excused myself from the meal and informed Mom that I had to go to the restroom. I crept inside Derek's room undetected. When I realized what Craig had left for him, my eyes widened. Hi, my name is Kesha, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to tap that notification bell. If you do, you may get your favorite dessert tonight, as my parents and I walked onto Derek's college campus. I couldn't help but smile, hoping that by coming unannounced, we would catch him in something unethical. You see, Derek and I were complete opposites. He has always been my parents' perfect child. Straight A's, always does what he's told, and just an all-around goody two-shoes. He also had a gorgeous girlfriend, Haley, who was actually pretty cool to hang with. I, on the other hand, would question everything, which usually got me into trouble with teachers. Had my own sense of fashion, and well, pretty much did what I wanted. I don't even think my parents expected me to go to college. When we got to his dorm room, one of his roommates opened the door.
Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Carrington. How are you?
Luke smiled.
Hi, Luke.
Dad gave him a firm handshake. The guys looked at each other before Luke replied. He had to do a philosophy makeup exam with Professor McGuire. I raised my eyebrows suspiciously. Class is on a Saturday.
It's a special class.
Luke shot. Look at me, Mom. Are you guys really believing this story? These guys can't lie to save their lives.
Oh, Kesha, stop it.
Dad looked at me sternly. Well, let him know that we dropped by, Mom said as she handed them a basket of baked goods. See, I told you we should have called first, Mom whispered to Dad as they left the room. My parents may have bought that lame excuse, but I didn't. Whatever Derek is hiding, I'm going to find out what it is. Luke smiled at me.
Maybe if you weren't such a problematic child, your parents may believe you once in a while.
Luke closed the door on my face. How dare he? I fumed as I ran to catch up with my parents. I'll find out what Derek is up to. As we were exiting the campus, Derek called out behind us.
Mom, Dad, wait up.
As he approached us, I asked, how was your exam with Professor McGuire? What a confused look to wash over Derek's face. Don't bombard Derek with your silly questions, Mom said as she kissed him on the cheek.
Let's get some lunch.
Dad patted Derek's back fondly after that exam.
You must have worked up an appetite.
As if I didn't exist. The 3 of them moved up front, each having their own chat. You'd think I get used to it by now, yet it still gets under my skin. My parents were always caught up on Derek's every word, yet they never listened to anything he said. I had to say something. We ate lunch together, and I pretended to be invisible to my family. After lunch, we said our goodbyes and returned home. After Mom asked Derek whether he was coming to Thanksgiving dinner, and he replied yes.
Professor McGuire said that if I aced this last test, I would be at the top of the class for the semester.
Derek, my older brother, mentioned before shoveling food into his mouth. I looked over at my brother with a critical eye. I always had a slight twitch whenever he was lying. I wondered what he was hiding from Mom and Dad. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. Kesha, are you expecting someone? Mom looked at me over her glasses. You know I don't like it when company disturbs dinner. I rolled my eyes. I'm not expecting anyone, Mom.
Sorry, Mom, it's me.
Derek wiped his mouth and stood up.
Craig had to drop off some papers for me that Professor McGuire needs.
Mom nodded, and Derek went to answer the door. A few minutes later, Derek returned. So, what type of papers did Craig need to drop off at this hour? I smirked in Derek's direction.
Nothing that concerns a high school student.
Derek responded, annoyed. We'll see about that, I mumbled as I gulped down the last of my juice.
Who wants dessert?
Dad chimed in.
I baked my well-known apple pie.
Derek and I both screamed at the same time. As Dad and Derek headed to the kitchen to prepare dessert, we exchanged glances before doubling over in laughter. I excused myself from the meal and informed Mom that I had to go to the restroom. I crept inside Derek's room undetected. When I saw what Craig had left for him on Derek's bed was a large envelope of transcripts, my eyes widened. I flipped through them. As I flipped through them, the door slammed shut behind me. I turned around and saw Derek standing there. He dashed over to my desk and pulled the papers from my grip. Why are you using forged transcripts? I tapped my foot lightly as I gazed at Derek.
Look, it's nothing you need to worry about, okay?
I wonder if Mom and Dad need to be worried.
He froze. You can't tell Mom and Dad.
I laughed. Can't. Oh, I'm telling. I walked towards the bedroom door, but Derek blocked me. He explained he had dropped out of college about a year ago, and he has been living off the checks Mom and Dad had been sending him for tuition. His friend's uncle already has a job lined up for him after college. That's why he needed the transcripts.
I'm tired of being the perfect son. I'm tired of being perfect for the both of us. Do you know how frustrating that is? I want to live my own life. You know I can't tell Mom about this. She already has a heart complication, and I don't want to make it worse.
You are irritated. Do you know what it's like to be continually surrounded by your own shadow? Never being good enough for either mother or father? They only see me when I do something that they don't approve of. I'm sorry that you feel the need to be flawless, bro. However, I suppose you'll have to continue to be the perfect child for a while longer. I demand 15% of your income, or I'll not only tell Mom, but I'll also go to your boss and inform him or her that you never finished high school. I hurried out of Derek's room with a grin on my face before he could answer. Derek and I returned to the table and pretended as if nothing had happened. I assisted Derek with his deception of claiming to be in the college on the day of his graduation during the next few months. I pretended to be ill so that we could all skip his graduation ceremony. I was put in the hospital overnight for observation, and Derek stayed with me and advised our parents to go home and relax. Derek began working as soon as he received his diploma. I received 15% of his monthly salary. Things were going swimmingly until the following Thanksgiving when my mother, father, Derek, and I sat around the table for another Thanksgiving supper. When the doorbell rang, I answered it to find Auntie Patricia standing there. I exclaimed to the others in the dining room, "Hey, y'all, it's Auntie Pat," as I hugged her. Auntie Pat was the family's black sheep. Whether she was invited or not, she showed up and usually brought some type of drama along the way. She said, "How are you, baby girl? I hope you're getting ready for college." "I'm doing the best I can, Auntie." I smiled and followed her into the dining room where she greeted everyone.
"Pat, you aren't welcome here," Mom said dryly. "Last time I checked, our parents left me the house. Miriam, I'm here. Get over it."
"She's family, and I think she should be allowed to stay." I folded my arms.
"And when you have your own house, you can have her by you. But until then, she isn't allowed here, no matter if half the houses are technically hers."
Dad looked embarrassed. "It's Thanksgiving. You can make an exception."
"Fine. If she stays, then I go."
Auntie Pat sat by the table and began to pile food on a plate. Mom pushed her chair back and walked out of the room.
"It's nice to see you, Pat."
Dad smiled before he followed Mom out of the room. Derek and I stayed with Auntie Pat as we updated her on what was going on in our lives. Somewhere along the line, Derek would have said that he and Haley eloped. Mom is going to have a fit when she hears this. I gasped. "Oh, Mom," I said playfully.
"Kesha, you know how your mom is, and I don't want you to upset her given her heart condition at all, especially with everything else that you've been hiding like that."
"Who told you your mom had a heart problem?" Auntie Pat asked with a raised eyebrow. "And what have you been hiding, Derek?" Derek, consumed by the new information about Mom, ignored Auntie Pat. "Last question. Mom did when she went to the hospital during my piano recital. I was 12 years old at the time." Derek then turned to face Auntie Pat. Your mother was diagnosed with an anxiety attack by the doctor." Auntie Pat laughed. Exactly like Miriam, who uses laughter to influence people into doing what she wants. Derek walked out of his room and into the living room where his mother and father were watching TV. Auntie Pat and I followed.
"Mom, do you have a heart condition?"
"You know I do."
"Where is this coming from?"
"Mom, if you've never been honest about anything else, please be honest. Now, do you have a heart problem?" I chimed in. Auntie Pat said. Mom glared at her sister. "This is why you aren't invited over. You were always starting trouble." "Telling the truth, you mean?" Auntie Pat asked before biting into the drumstick in her hand. "Just tell the truth, Miriam."
"What is she talking about, Miriam?"
Dad asked, looking quite confused about the entire situation. Mom said, "Fine." She stood up and looked at everyone. "I don't have heart complications. Is everyone happy now?" Mom threw her hands up in the air. I watched as the shock of what Mom had said turned to her on Dad's face.
"So what have you been talking about all these years?"
Dad shook his head and turned towards the window.
"I can't believe I pretended to be a perfect son. I guess we are a family of frauds."
Derek screamed and informed our parents about his new job, how he had dropped out of college, and how he and his fiancée had eloped while she was 4 months pregnant. Then he turned to me.
"And you, my own sister, whom I assume was blackmailing me behind my back. I'm done with this and this family. With that, I don't want to see any of you again."
Derek vanished without a trace, and we never saw him again. Things with Mom and Dad deteriorated over the next few months. Dad departed when I graduated from high school. Mom was upset and went into a condition of withdrawal, not speaking or eating for several days. Even though I was accepted to Penn State, I chose to attend a community college so that I could care for my mother. I also obtained a job in the afternoons and on the weekends to supplement my income. I attempted to contact Derek to apologize after my father had left, but he ignored my calls. My buddies demanded that I attend a party with them on my night off one semester before finals because I didn't have much of a social life in college. I was hesitant to go because I wanted to spend the night with my mother, who said she no longer sees me and feels stuck at home alone. That night, I informed Mom that I would be working an extra shift. I felt awful about lying to my mother, but I needed to unwind. She said okay, went to her room, and locked the door. By the time my friends and I got to the club, the party was in full swing. I was having a great time and thanked my friends for dragging me out of the house. That was until I saw her. The crowd was cheering and someone was dancing in the middle of my friends, and I inched forward to see who the dancer was. My eyes widened when I realized it was my mother. "Mama!" I shouted as I spun her around to face me. "Hi, Keisha. I thought you were working tonight," she fumbled. "I can't believe I've spent so much time feeling sorry for you, and now you're living your greatest life? This is the last straw for me." I stormed out of the club, yelling obscenities. I looked at the phone and didn't understand how this damn piece of plastic could control me in my life. It was literally enslaving me and turning me into a servant. No, this was some kind of joke. It just couldn't be. How did I end up being controlled by a phone? I got my last assignment, or at least it should have been the last, but I wasn't sure. After all, the one who was behind all this definitely was not an honest or decent person. I was afraid to even read the terms of the next assignment because I was sure that something terrible would be hidden in there. And I wasn't wrong. This time, it was the most difficult task. Yet the phone decided to force me to do something I would have never done of my own free will. And it knew that for sure, which is why it decided to bring me face to face with my nightmare. Oh no, not this. I would never dare to do this. But I had no choice. I had to complete the last task, and then I hoped I would be free. I had no other options, so I had to just psych myself up and get it done faster, the better. I had to go to the cemetery in the middle of the night and get a bundle from a specific grave. The anonymous person left it there just for me. Oh God, I was afraid to go there during the day. The cemetery is actually one of my biggest fears. How is the phone? No, about that. I started getting strange messages on the phone addressed to me. The phone started giving me orders I couldn't refuse, and soon you'll find out why. I go to school close to my house, about 8 to 10 minutes away on foot. I walk along the same route every day. I think I already know every pebble on the way, and I also know all the faces of the passerbys who regularly walk the same road at the same time. And that day too, everything was the same as ever. The same road, the same passersby, the same pebbles. But suddenly I noticed a phone lying on the side of the road. It had its screen turned on, and that's why I noticed it. Of course, I immediately decided to pick it up and get it back to its owner. I figured it was most likely someone who I could see every day on my way to or from school. I could only hope that it wasn't password protected, because in that case, I'd have to wait for a call from the owner of the phone. I sat down on a nearby bench and turned on the cell phone. Fortunately, it wasn't password protected, and I immediately received a message from an unknown person. The message said, "Hi, Chloe. I'm glad you picked up this phone. I didn't doubt you." What did this unknown person call me by name? How is that even possible? This was probably some kind of mistake because I have nothing to do with this phone. And then I decided to write back that my name is really Chloe, but I have nothing to do with this phone. However, in response, the anonymous person sent a laughing emoji and wrote my last name, saying that there was no mistake. And then he said that I would have to complete several tasks and that I had no choice because otherwise he would show my parents and classmates the entries from my diary. And then I got scared. After all, I lost my personal diary last year while moving from one house to another, and there really were very
personal things recorded in it that no one should know about. But where did he get it from? It felt like I had walked into some kind of thriller and I was snared by this evil, anonymous person. And this new reality wasn't right at all. It was all like a nightmare or a madman's delirium. How can someone else's phone know so much about me? Then the anonymous person sent me a photo of some pages from my diary and asked if I was ready to start the assignment. And I had to say yes because now I was trapped and really no choice. So my first assignment was an easy photo, right? Not easy at all because I had to be photographed with 3 spiders on my face. The anonymous author sent an address where the jar of bugs was hidden and said to come pick it up. Panic seized me. I'm terribly afraid of spiders, and he knew it. This scoundrel decided to push my buttons and play on my phobia, but I was even more afraid of the entries from my lost diary getting out than of the spiders. So not believing what was happening, I walked to the place he told me to go. My legs were like jelly. It was very difficult for me to even touch the jar with the 3 spiders. My hands were shaking and I was on the verge of passing out, but despite this, I forced myself to get them out and take a photo. I cried and screamed in horror, but I still put the spiders on my face and quickly took a photo. The task was complete and I went home in tears. I was still scared, disgusted, and offended that I was being played by with some jerk. I was terrified as I thought about what task he had planned for me next. But he said that there would be 3 in total. And most importantly, I had absolutely no idea who might be hiding on the other side of the phone. After all, I didn't even know exactly when my diary disappeared and who had been next to me at the time. So the thought of who was hiding on the other side of the phone scared me. The next day, I received a new assignment. It said that I had to swim across one of the rivers in the city. It's not wide at all, but that doesn't really matter to me because I am insanely afraid of water. I don't even know if I can swim. I started having a panic attack and asked the anonymous person to replace his task with something else. I thought this was the worst possible thing he could ask. I was ready for anything, just not for this. But he was adamant and said that all the tasks were mandatory, and he knew for sure that water was another one of my nightmares. That's why he gave me the order. He thinks he's so funny. I was disgusted that this person was ever anywhere near me, or worse, he might still be around me and might even be someone I consider myself close to. I had exactly 1 day to complete this task, and I began to psych myself up for a short swim. However, I admitted that I didn't know how to swim. I was seized with horror. What if I drowned? What if the river's current carried me somewhere far away? I honestly tried to psych myself up for the swim. By time after time, I had panic attacks, so I decided to take a sedative before swimming. It was the only way I could make myself get into the water. I needed to finish this task as soon as possible, and I wasn't afraid at all because of the medication. So at some point, I even liked doing it. I didn't know swimming could be so cool. Well, at least something good happened in all this. The anonymous person said he watched me and commended me for completing the second task successfully. Immediately after that, he asked me if I was ready for my decisive test, after which the fate of the diary would become clear. I said yes again. So the third and final test was a trip to the cemetery at night, and the worst thing is that I would never go there even during the day because I'm terribly afraid of the topic of death and everything connected with it. God, how did he know about all this? Who was he? This time, I decided to do exactly the same as the previous assignment. I let myself panic a little at first, then remembered that my mother had a mixture of aromatic oils, which according to her was very soothing. I decided to use it. I don't know how it works, but that scent really calmed me down very well. So I went to the cemetery with little or no fear. Yes, for me it was completely unusual and not very comfortable, but I did it and sent him a photo of the buried package. Hooray! The last test was complete. Now it was the anonymous person's turn, and I really hoped that he would turn out to be a decent person. He didn't answer for a long time, and his silence made me nervous. Come on, say something, I thought. An hour later, I received an answer. He wrote that I was great and that he was proud of me because I managed to overcome my greatest fears. Then he sent me a photo in which he burned my diary and said that now I can be free, not only from his assignments, but also from my phobias. After that, he sent me his photo. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was my ex-boyfriend, Steven. I broke up with him over a year ago, but we stayed good friends and kept in touch.
Our relationship ended because he got too carried away with religion and spirituality. I was very angry with him and demanded an explanation. Steven said that he was very worried about me because of many phobias and decided to make me overcome my fears no matter what it took. He first stole my diary and then helped us with the move, and then he began to develop a plan. He knew what time I went to school, what time I got back, so he knew when and where the phone should be. He thought of every little detail and came up with difficult tasks that would force me to overcome my fears. I cannot even begin to describe how angry I was with him, who gave him the right to come into my life, scare me, and try to get rid of my phobias without my permission. This was a gross violation of boundaries, and I told him that I hated him. Nevertheless, 2 of my 3 fears really did leave me. I am no longer afraid of water, and I'm no longer afraid of cemeteries. I was able to overcome these fears. However, I am still afraid of spiders.